Hello and welcome back to another episode of Victoria the Bard, where I tell stories of the fantastical kind. Now today I wanted to take on a bit of a theme. You can tell by my surroundings up here, I'm going for more of a desert feel. And with my magic lamp here, you might be guessing I might be going for an Arabian story, and you would be right. There have been so many great stories that sprung up from Arabia, like Aladdin and the Magic Lamp, or Sinbad the Sailor. So, in 1001 Nights fashion, I wanted to tell an Arabian story of my own. Now, this lamp, it all really starts with it. Most of the stories revolve around this thing. Now, you know, to get a genie out, you don't shake it. You don't try to take off the top. Everybody knows you have to rub it. Now the Sultan woke up one morning and looked across his kingdom and began doing what he had been doing pretty much every single day since he took the throne, putting down peasant revolts. Now the people didn't really like him that much, and he didn't really know why. I mean, he left the peasants to do their own things. He thought that the peasants' problems was not his problems, and because he was a noble, he was the ruler of all this land, he shouldn't be dealing with such insignificant troubles. Now his family, his daughter, his wife, his brother, his advisor, all tried to tell him how to fix these revolts, but he didn't listen to them. He thought they sounded so demanding of him. He didn't like to be bossed around. So, just for that, he turned his back on the kingdom. That's it. Well, there's one thing that always unites a certain number of people, and that is desperation. Now the people of the kingdom began to get desperate. They needed their problems fixed. There's just certain things that the Sultan can do and they cannot. So they kind of banded together, a few of the stronger, rebellious types, and they forged a plan together. They planned to kidnap the king's favorite brother, take him away just to show the Sultan just a taste of how mad they are. Maybe then the Sultan would think that things could not get any worse and maybe try to help them. So, they devised a plan, and that night snuck very stealthily into the castle. They creeped up, knocked a few of the guards out, and went into the brothers' chambers. They bound a cloth around his mouth, they tied him up, and threw him in a sack. And then, acting like servants, just taking out the feast's scraps, they just walked out of the palace, threw him on the back of a camel, and left. Went far, far away. Now the Sultan woke up in the morning, stretched, tried to put down a few more revolts. It didn't really work, but he didn't care. Now that night, he realized that his brother had not gotten out of bed, which was very strange for his brother. So, he went to go check on him. He threw open the doors of his chamber and did not find his brother in his bed. He found a note. The note said, "This is but a taste of how mad we are at you. If you don't do something fast, more of your family would disappear." Now, the Sultan didn't like this demanding tone of the note, and so he didn't want to do anything. But he did want to get his favorite brother back. So he gathered up all his soldiers and said, "If any one of you finds this brother of mine and his captors, who brings the brother back to me alive, then you all will inherit the throne." So, like all reasonable people would, they went out searching. Now there was a very special soldier among them named Yazan. And Yazan He really wanted that throne, just like the rest of the soldiers. So he went out looking for the king, Sultan's brother. So he traveled among the marketplace roads and just keeping an eye out in case they thought it smart to hit him in plain sight. And so, as Yazan was looking, he passed this old woman. Now, she had dozens of children surrounding her, and this old woman was telling a story. So Yazan stopped. Now, this woman, she was telling a story of a magic lamp and a genie inside. The genie could grant 3 wishes. Yazan immediately thought of his quest for the Sultan. He thought that he could use one of his wishes, maybe to bring the brother back to him. There we go. Easy as pie. So he listened in to the lady's story, and the woman finally disclosed the place that the lamp was held. It was on top of a mountain. But the only people who knew how to get there was a camel caravan. So Yazan immediately started looking for a camel caravan, and he found one easy enough. It was a very nice part of the traders' marketplace. So he went up to the trader leader and said, I would like to join your camel caravan and head across the mountains. But the trader only agreed to this if Yazan would take off all his armor and throw away all his swords and daggers and weapons of all kind. And in turn, they gave him, of course, safe passage to the mountain and trader's cloth to wear. So Yazan agreed. He threw away all his weapons, all his armor, except for one dagger. That he disclosed in the folds of his garment. And he mounted a camel and rode off with the camel caravan. Now, a few days into the journey, they stopped for camp. Now they made sure to pack much water and food, and they threw up tents all surrounding a little desert area. And so they sat and ate and finally went to sleep. Now Yazan, he kept an eye out because they knew that camel caravans often attacked other caravans. And so when his shift was over, the leader came and relieved him, and so he went back to his tent, tried to go to sleep, but he couldn't. He felt that there was something wrong with these traders. So he felt for the dagger inside his garments and had his hand on it, but stayed awake, acted like he was sleeping. And sure enough, maybe half an hour later, he heard voices outside of his tent. They whispered, "Is he asleep? Do you think he is? Can you hear him snoring?" He grinned slightly at these hurried responses and still clutched the dagger and snored a bit louder. Finally, he heard soft footprints on the sand where he lay. He could tell there was about 2 of them. So, once they were just close enough he could hear them, he sprung up, disarmed one of the men, had the knife in his hand, and held it to both of their necks. But just as he did that, the tent ripped away, and he was surrounded by all the traders, all pointing weapons of all kinds at Yazan, and he had just stood there. He dropped the knife he had taken from one of the men, and still knew that his own knife was safe in his garment. Well, they tied him up, hands to the front of him, bound his legs, and threw him into this basket, where there are a few other hostages with him. So, in true 1001 Nights fashion, that's all I'm going to leave you with for this week. But be sure to come back next week to hear the daring tale, the exciting ending of Yazan and his quest. Very well, my friends.